Welcome to edgeofcode.com's Infinite Roller tutorial series. If you prefer a written tutorial, you can find one at edgeofcode.com. So in the previous tutorial we randomised the height of the terrain. Today we're going to add scoring and keep track of the player's high score. So over different games we'll track the high score. At the moment we'll make scoring simple, so the player's score will be the number of seconds they've kept the character alive for. If we add things for the character to pick up or something like that later, we could add extra points for collecting those. But for the moment it'll just be time. So open your Infinite Roller project and the scene, then go to the scripts folder and create a new C# script by right clicking and going to create and C# script. Call this score setter. Okay, open the script and delete the existing code that's inside the class. To start with, I'm going to create two new variables. One is going to be to keep track of the score, and it's going to be a float, and I'm going to call it float score. This is because this is how we'll keep track of it, but it won't be the score that we display on here. For that we're going to transform it into an int, because we don't want it to display a time that's like 3.14, like we don't want the point after it. It will be a score of 1, 2, 3, etc. And the other thing we want to keep track of is the time since we started playing the game. And that will be reset each time we press play Infinite Roller. So this will also be a float, and I'll call it start time. To initialize this, we're going to create an awake method. So I want to set the start time, and to do that I'm going to do start time equals time dot time. So this is the time in seconds since the start of the game. Next, create an update method, and in here we want to update the score based on how much time has passed. So we'll have float score equal to time dot time, which is the current time since the start of the game, minus start time. So the difference in those is the time that's passed since the start of the game. And then I'm going to create an int called int score, and I will create a new method in a moment called get int score, and I'll be getting that from the float score. So let's create that method. It needs to return an int so that it can be assigned to int score, and called get int score. In here we're just gonna, I'm gonna leave a comment above this. So this is just going to round the score to an int, and to do that we just want to return the float score, but a rounded version of that. And to do that we use mathf, the maths class, dot round to int. So it already has a method that does this. It rounds a float to an int, so passing in float score, and that's it. Okay, so save the script for now and go back to Unity, and then find score, which is a game object under hood, and I'm going to drag score setter onto there so it's added as a component. Okay, so we're going to want to access the text component of this game object. So go back to score setter script and create a new private variable. So type text, and I'm going to call it text as well. to use text. As you can see, if I hover over that, it says text does not exist in the current context. That's because to use the UI system, I need to type in up here using Unity engine.ui. And now I should have access to this, which I do. In Awake, I'm going to use the getComponent method to initialize this text to be this text component. So text equals get components, and it's the component that's of type text. In update, we will set the text variable to be the score, but first, because we want it to say, like it does here, score colon and then the score, I'm going to create a const variable, a string, to store that text as it doesn't change but the score itself does. So score underscore text equals score colon. So we can use that each time. Okay. So in update, after we've found int score, we want to do text.text. So this is the text object text box that we're setting. So this is going to be score text plus int score. So that should give us score colon and then the current time in an int format. So save your script and go back and press play, and hopefully the score will start counting up per second. Cool. Okay, so one thing I'm going to change now is if you were playing the game for like a while, this box would become too small. So once this was, say, 4 digits, the 4th digit would perhaps be on across the edge of this, which means it wouldn't display it. So we're going to enlarge it by changing the width in the rect transform. So I think I'm going to change it to maybe 350. So that gives us a large box, and hopefully that should be enough. You could increase it further if you want, but this should be fine. Okay, so next we want the score to display on the menu once the game is over. So at the moment, if I press play and die, it says your score is score. So I want this to say your score is, and I think in that case it was about 2. So we're going to change that now. So go back to your script, go to game controller, and create a new class variable, public one, called score, and it's of type score setter. And it's a ref to score. So save it, go back to Unity, click on game controller, and you've got a new score setter slot. So drag score, the score game object onto that, and it will automatically find the score setter component of score. Okay, go back to the script and go down to the set game info text method that we created before. So this will be changed quite a lot by the end of this tutorial, but to start with, we just want to create an int called int score, and I'm going to do score, which is the score setter object that we have a reference to, dot get int, and I think I've forgotten to make it public, so this should be public so that we can access it and just get the current score. So get int score, and now instead of having this score in capitals here, I'm going to end the quotation mark there, do plus int score plus. So this will say your score is, and then it will insert whatever int score is, and it will still say this may or may not be a new high score. Let's see if that works. Save it and go back to Unity. Oh. And I haven't saved the score setter script since I changed this to public. So go back and save it as well. Let's see if that works. Your score is 3. Excellent. We'll add code to reset the score when we start a new game later in the tutorial. But first, create another new script in the scripts folder called high score setter this time. And open it and delete the existing stuff. We're going to want to access the text class again, so add using Unity Engine .ui at the top again so that we can access the namespace, and then create a new reference to the text variable and assign it in awake in the same way that we did in the score setter class. So that's text equals get component text, and we can use this because we're going to attach this to the high score game object. Actually, let's do that now. Save the high score setter script, go back to Unity, select high score, and drag high score setter onto it. So get component is finding this component. Okay. So if a high score has been set, we want to retrieve that information and set it when we start the game. So first create a const variable like we did in score setter. Actually, copy that, paste, and this one's going to be high score set. This is going to be high score text and high score codon. So I think this should be 2 separate words actually. Not that it matters anymore, but okay. I'm also going to create a new string variable, private string, and I'm going to call it high score key. So this will be used to store and retrieve the player's high score. I'm going to initialize it to start with. I'm going to give it the value of the current level's name. So in this case, the level's name is the scene name roller line. So the key will be roller line as well. And we access that using loaded level name. I'm using this in case we want to add more levels to this, or you want to add more levels to this later. And so this will be different for each scene that you have. Okay, create a new method called be private void set high score text. So this method will set the text here. It won't actually set the high score itself, it will just set the text. So we're going to do that in a separate method. So this will display the high score. So in here, all we need to do is get whatever the current high score is, which we do by doing player prefs. So this is where we will store the high score in a moment. And to get the high score, we do get int, because we're going to store the high score as an int. So get int, and we want to pass in the key, high score key. You'll see in a moment when we want to set the high score, we'll use set int, and and we'll pass in this key as well as the score that we want to set as the high score. Next, we want to do text.text to set the text in the text box, and it's going to be equal to the high score text plus high score. Oh, it's not working because I've missed the semicolon off the end. Plus high score. We're going to call this method from awake after the high score key has been initialized, so that it's set as soon as we start up the game. We also need to be able to set a new high score when the game has been played. So to do this, first create a method to check whether the score is a new high score or not. So this method is going to check if the score is a new high score. This is going to be public because we're going to call it from the game controller. So it's public bool is new high score, and we're going to pass in a score to compare it against. So first create a local bool variable called is new high score, and this is going to be set to true if the new score is higher than the existing high score. So to start with, I'll give this a value of false, and then get the old high score by doing int high score equals player prefs dot get int high score key, just like we did up here. And if score is more than high score, then is new high score should be true, and we return is new high score. To actually set the high score, create another method. So this one is set a new high score. This one will be public as well. Need to pass in the score to set. So this is actually the new high score. So first we want to set the new one. To do that, we do player prefs dot set int, and we pass in the key and the value to save. So the key is our high score key, and the value is the new high score that we've passed into this method. And we also want to change this to display that new value. Okay, so save this script now and go back to game controller. We will need a reference to high score setter now. So create another new variable, and this one will be ref to high score. So public high score setter, high score setter. Save it and go back to Unity game controller, and then drag high score game object onto here. Okay, so now go to the set game info text method again, and now we're going to change the rest of this statement. So once we have the int score, we're going to check if it's a new high score by doing So we're going to create a new new high score Boolean value, and it's going to be high score setter dot is new high score, passing in int score. So this will check whether int score is a new high score or not, because if this is true we want to display some text, and if it's false we want to display some different text. I'm going to create another new variable to store the text that we're going to set this info.text as. So I'm going to have the start of the info text to set to start with. So that's a string. I'm going to call it info text, and it's going to be this. Oh, no. This. With closing quotation marks and a semicolon. And now I want to check. So if it's a new high score, add a nice message. So if is new high score, then I'm going to start off with info text, and I'm going to add on. So that's what this plus equals sign means. It means I keep what's here already and I add something extra to it. So I'm going to add well done. This is a new high score. Remember to add the semicolon on the end. So I've added a space after the full stop on this sentence, so that when I add this new block of text to it, I don't start directly after the full stop. Okay, so create an else statement as well, and that will be info text. And I'm adding on this isn't a new high score, and I'm going to say rubbish, maybe you should try again. And make sure info text is now set to the proper thing, so it should be equal to info text. Okay, so now I'm going to create another new method to set a new high score. It needs to be private void set high score. And in here it's going to be, and this method is going to be to save and display the score as a high score if the player got a new one. So first I want to get the score, so that's create a new variable called int score again, and use score dot get int score. And then I want to set this as a new high score if it's a new one. So so to do this, it's if high score setter dot is new high score, passing in int score. So if it is a new high score, then we want to call high score setters set new high score method, and again passing in int score. And then we just need to call this method in update once the game is over. I'll do it after that line. Okay, so now save this script, go back to score setter, and now we're going to make a method to reset the score after each game. So it's going to be public because we're going to call it from game controller again. And I'll call it reset score. I'm going to reset the score variable. So float score will be 0. I actually probably don't need to do that because we reset it in each frame. So this line probably doesn't make a difference. I'm just going to leave it though. And I also want to, and this is the important step, I want to reset start time. So start time equals time.time. We're going to call reset score in this restart game method in game controller. And restart game is called once the character falls through a gap. It's not called when we click play infinite roller, but this will still give us the correct time because when we get to this point, we've already paused the game. So in toggle menu, we set the time scale to be 0, which pauses everything. It also pauses the time.time variable. So even though we are resetting the start time when we finish the game rather than when we start a new one, it doesn't matter because we've paused the game. Okay, so save the score setter script, go to game controller, and in restart game, reset the score. Okay, so make sure all of your scripts are saved and then go back to Unity and try playing the game and make sure it works. Okay, so score counts up. I'm going to fall off. My score is 6, which is a new high score. So next time, high score should be displayed here as 6, which it is. So this time I'm going to lose against my old high score. So I got 5, this isn't a new high score, rubbish, maybe just try again. And this time I'll try and beat it again. So it hasn't been updated this time because it wasn't a new high score. But this time it should be. And now it's 9, which is a new high score. Actually, I'm going to change the colour of the text here because it's a bit dark and I think it could be better if it's white. So I'm going to title and colour and white. Info, I'm going to change to white as well. And probably the button text so that it all matches. Okay, I think that's better. You can also see that the high score persists between playing, so if I start playing again, then my high score is still 9, and it will remember that. So if my high score is now 12, so if I quit and play again, high score would be 12 still. Cool. Okay, so save your scene and the project. And in this tutorial we've added scoring and we've recorded the player's high score. Next time we will look at creating our own sound effects using Audacity. And remember, you can download the files for this tutorial at edgeofcode.com on the downloads page if you want to. And I'll see you next time.